All right, everybody. Cinephile Mike is here, and it is episode 19 of Oscar Rewind Season 2, my bi weekly series of videos dropping every Tuesday and Friday, where I revisit films that reflect the work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. I dig deep into those IMDb profiles, and my hope is that you will discover a new favorite or maybe revisit something that you haven't seen in a while. As always, I'll be discussing the awards connection, the awards history for this particular film, box office, critical response, and most importantly, these reviews are spoiler free. Now, before we jump into it, do me a favor, please click that subscribe button. You don't want to miss all the excitement coming up on Rewind and some other fun content coming soon. So, moving right along, we are in Actor Month for the month of May. We are looking at the earlier work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners for supporting and lead performances. And to cap the winning four, today I am looking at Ocean Releasing's Liza, Skies Are Gray. Written and directed by five-time Oscar nominee and two-time Oscar winner Terry Sanders, this film was released in 2017 after being filmed in 2015. Now, despite having a limited theatrical release and despite my best efforts to do some research, could not find any box office information for this film. So to my box office pundits, I'm sorry, got nothing for you. For my critical folks, the ones that love hearing about the Rotten Tomatoes score, well, this film is low. It is 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, but only coming from 9 reviews. However, there are no audience reviews to speak of. So there's no popcorn meter as of this, recording and posting, whether that pops up. So there you have it. Now, as you can assess from the poster, and if you have been regularly following me, you know that I am about to wrap our four with the feature film debut of one Mikey Madison, who, at the conclusion of the first decade of what it promises to be a very long career, won her first Oscar on her first nomination for Honora. But in this one, Liza, played by Madison, is a 15-year-old girl growing up in Los Angeles in 1966. A musician, she plays the cello in a youth orchestra. And she's living a fraught relationship with her mother, played by Kristen Minter, much of which is rooted in her father's suicide. Now, she seems to be closer to the family maid Teresa, played by Valerie Ray Miller, than she does with her mother. Now, through this summer program, she has met and starts dating Brett, a 16-year-old, played by Sean H. Scully. He is a trumpet player in the band and a bad boy whose Liza's mother does not care for. I mean, look, he's the longer haired kid. He rides a motorcycle. He's got the leather jacket. I mean, he's had to attend a boarding school. He's been staying with his aunt because his parents are getting divorced on the East Coast, so he's attending boarding school on the West Coast. Look, this is not the boy for Liza. She needs something more. I want something more for her. But as the summer winds down and Brett prepares to leave because he reveals pretty early on that he is going to go back east to be with his dad, Liza and Brett decide, you know what? We want to be each other's first, to share a moment and give one another this gift. Now, to accomplish this, they decide that they are going to go on a short trip, have one last little getaway. So, climbing aboard Brett's motorcycle, Liza and Brett take a short trip along the California coast to accomplish their goal and perhaps, given their sheltered upbringing, live some life. And this is a major time in our country's history with a lot of cultural shifts that these two characters wanted to explore. The Vietnam War is on. People are, dodging, avoiding the draft as best they can. The civil rights movement is really starting to gain traction and move forward. And most importantly, as to our young lovers, the 60s was the time of the sexual revolution, and they actually call this out. Even when Brett asks her at one point if she's sure that she wants to do it, shouldn't she be saying no? She just looks at him and laughs and is like, oh, you 16-year-old boys, you don't get it. Don't you know it's okay for us to say yes now? Look, these are just two kids who want to explore more, see more. I mean, that's what youth is all about. It's the 60s. There's no cell phones, there's no devices, there's no distractions. So off they go on their journey, and they will encounter various individuals. Some are threats, some are not. but each will have its impact on our couple as they strive to accomplish their goal of a moment. And we will see if this love can survive the test of time. Right off, let me talk about Madison's performance. Here, out of all the performances that I have seen of her, I have not seen the Better Things TV show. Most of all the stuff I've seen her in is film work. Her Liza is probably the most like the Madison that we've seen, along the award circuit this season. A sweet, soft spoken girl that is very, very confident knowing what she wants, but is not too forceful. This is not the strong willed, balls to the wall crazy, which also she does it very well, that she did in Scream, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Nora. But here it was really wonderful to see this more quiet, reserved kind of character. Maybe if this film had gotten a little more attention when it came out, it would have marked a stronger entrance for Madison. But the problem here is not even that it's the performers, and there are a few other mediocre performances, but the biggest issue I have with this one is the script. It's very, very weak and underdeveloped. Now, you might say, wait, hold up, Mike. Did you say this was written and directed by an Oscar winner? I mean, 2 Oscar wins out of 5 nominations? Yes, this is all true. All the Academy love that Sanders got, though, was in the field of documentaries. His first win was for the short A Time Out of War in 1955. Then he had a feature documentary win for Mei Lin, A Strong Clear Vision in 1995. So a 40-year gap there. And his last nod was in 1996 for the short Never Give Up, the 20th Century Odyssey of Herbert Zipper. Liza, Skies Are Gray was his first and last foray into narrative feature films. And besides directing one episode of the famed TV series in 1983, his whole directing, writing, and producing career was, dedicated to documentaries. Same one other narrative war film that he co-wrote in 1958 called The Naked and the Dead, and a couple of other narrative films that he produced, didn't write direct, but those were in the 50s, 60s. So one has to wonder why in his 80s he decided to tell a story of a barely pubescent couple just, trying to get it on. Now, look, really quick. I'm not saying that, people in their 80s should not be making films. They should be able to go on until they can't or don't want to, and massive applause, for Sanders for doing so. I just don't know if this was the right story for him to tell. Obviously, his war films were done in the 50s and 60s, so this time period was pressing on him, but unfortunately, just the way he tried to force some of the dialogue and terminology of the time into this film does not work. He introduces historical elements, and it's almost like I want to try to show you I know what the 60s were like, that we're not focused on the story. I mean, I guess the good thing, the director's cut of the film, the one that you can see, is an hour and 22 minutes, so it's short, but there's not much of a story. Subplots and characters get very quickly introduced and vanish without any real attention paid, so any impact that they are meant to have is kind of pointless. As I said, the acting across the board is mixed, but Madison is primarily a standout. You just wish that she had a little bit more to work with. The film is a little predictable. It attempts to capture a time in our history, sort of what Lee tried to do with Summer of Sam, which I discussed, earlier in Rewind. But, you know, here, he's not able to really catch that aesthetic. It's just too forced. It doesn't work. Again, I think the reason that the film is surfacing is because of Madison's Oscar win. So sadly for me, this one, it's hard. This is a forgettable, but I'm going to say a 2-star film for me. One for the attempt, and one is for Madison. I'm glad that I've seen it. I don't know if I will actually revisit it, but if you would like to catch Liza, Skies Are Gray, as of this recording and posting, you can find it streaming with commercials on the V Movies channel on YouTube. All right. So there you have it. We have now wrapped our 4 leading and supporting Oscar-winning performances, but we are not done with Actor Month yet. We have some great ones coming up: Cynthia Erivo, Edward Norton, Timothée Chalamet. So all that's coming up on the horizon. And if you like what you heard here and you want to hear all that, you got to make sure that you hit that subscribe button, like and share the video, spread the word. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd. Find lots of great additional cinematic goodness on my website, cinephilemike.com, including print reviews of all the new summer 2025 releases. All right. Happy watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.